A little J.J. McCarthy magic led the Minnesota Vikings to a comeback win over the Bears, but it was Caleb Williams' performance that really caught my eye. That and more on today's edition of Locked On NFL.
The new Locked On NFL. The madman Tyler Rowland is your double shot of NFL espresso with the Locked On local experts on every major story. Get ready, Rowland is revving up. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Football fans, welcome in to the Locked On NFL podcast, bringing you a double dose of the NFL's biggest stories with help from our local experts that know your favorite teams like no one else. I am your host, the madman, Tyler Rowland, running a little bit of a solo mission on today's show. We got to talk about a potential reunion between the Kansas City Chiefs and Tyreek Hill. I'm going to tell you why the New York Giants have to start Jaxson Dart, but we got to begin with that excellent Monday Night Football game where the Minnesota Vikings come back on the Chicago Bears. Before we dive into all of it, I do want to thank you for making Locked On NFL your first listen and for being an everydayer here with us at the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Again, we are going to start with this incredible Monday Night Football game. The Minnesota Vikings come back super late. The Chicago Bears are basically dominating this game. It's 17-6 going into the fourth quarter. And then J.J. McCarthy goes crazy. The entire internet is burying J.J. McCarthy. He's terrible, this and that, blah, blah, blah. And then the fourth quarter happens. J.J. McCarthy goes absolutely insane. And I think the reality is he just got comfortable. You could see early on everything was a fastball. He was a little late to all his throws. Things just didn't seem like they were in sync for J.J. McCarthy. And at the end of the day, he may be going into his second year as a player, but he's basically a rookie. He didn't get any time on the field outside of some early preseason stuff and then early training camp stuff last year. So J.J. McCarthy, for all intents and purposes, is really a rookie quarterback out there. And I thought the way that he bounced back at the end of the game to lead them down, was it a statistically fantastic performance for McCarthy? No. 13 for 20, 143, threw that pick six early in the game. Like, it did look bad. No doubt about it, it did look bad early on, but to turn it on at the end, and such impressive coaching by Brian Flores and by Kevin O'Connell. Especially, you look at the very end of the game, the Bears, Ben Johnson just totally mismanaged the situation. There was 2 minutes and 2 seconds left on the clock, and the Bears only had one timeout. They could not afford to let the Vikings get that clock under 2 minutes and for the 2-minute warning to not be used as a secondary timeout for them. They could have kicked it straight out of bounds and put the Vikings on the 40-yard line, and it would have been a better idea than kicking it and let them return it, because the need for that extra 2-minute warning timeout, that was far more important to the Chicago Bears than the field position of the matter. If you're the Bears, you have one timeout and then the 2-minute warning. You have to get a 3-and-out stop anyway. Like, it doesn't matter whether the Vikings are on the 40-yard line, the 4-yard line. It doesn't matter. The time is what you need the most. Ben Johnson kicks the ball into the end zone, and Kevin O'Connell, one of the best coaches in the entire NFL, makes eye contact with his returner and says, "Bring it out," waves him out of the back of the end zone. And what does he do? He brings it out, looks at his coach. It was incredible to see him look over at the sideline and look at his coach. And you know that Kevin O'Connell was like, "Hey, go out there. When you catch the ball in the end zone, look at me. I'm going to tell you what to do based on what happened." O'Connell waves him out. Not a great return by any means, but it doesn't matter, because after the return is over, there's 1:55 on the clock. And now the Bears can't use the 2-minute warning as their timeout. They can't. So now you're screwed. And now the Bears get the ball back with 9 seconds left. What are they going to do then? They run a play where they snap the ball off the wide receiver in motion, and now there's 5 seconds left. You have no chance whatsoever. The game is over. The game is over. So malpractice, quite frankly, by Ben Johnson. He should have absolutely kicked the ball out of bounds, but where there's bad coaching, someone's going to take advantage because they're a better football coach. And look, we talk about J.J. McCarthy being a rookie. This is Ben Johnson's first game as a head coach. I would like to think that Ben Johnson would do things differently moving forward in the future. If he could replay that scenario, he would do it differently because it's just illogical to do what he did and let the Vikings cut your throat like that. It's just absolutely insane. But overall, great job by J.J. McCarthy, overcoming a poor start, staying on it. Again, 21 points in the fourth quarter. I saw a stat. J.J. McCarthy is the first rookie quarterback to ever score 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter of their debut. So it may have been ugly early, but McCarthy responded late after he got comfortable, and you have to commend him for that, but you have to commend the coaching staff of the Vikings, who continues to prove that they're just better than a lot of other coaching staffs. But obviously, the other side of this is the Chicago Bears. The Bears gave a whole new meaning to bear down. Like, it just unbelievable how this franchise continues to shoot itself in the foot. They had this game under wraps. The defense was dominating the Vikings offense. They were able to move the ball a little bit early on. I'm not overly impressed. And, you know, my guy Lauren Cox, poor Lauren, he would be with me right now if he wasn't trying to handle that Bears stuff right now. But poor guy, another tough Bears situation.
The first half felt like real progress, but the collapse in the second half felt all too familiar in the Chicago Bears' Week 1 loss to the Minnesota Vikings. For a while there, it felt like this Bears offense is in rhythm, Caleb Williams confident and decisive, and the Bears defense aggressive, shutting down J.J. McCarthy and ruining his debut. But in the second half, the whole script flipped, and the Bears went from seemingly out-coaching the Vikings to feeling a little bit out-coached. Brian Flores and his defense adjusted and got Caleb out of rhythm. Kevin McCarthy found some plays that worked for J.J. McCarthy, and all of a sudden, the Vikings went from losing in the trenches to dominating up front, and the Bears are left trying to pick up the pieces and figure out what went wrong in a game that they should have won. Ultimately, if someone had told you coming into this game that the Bears would lose a close 27-24 game against the Vikings, you might not have thought that was all that surprising, but this one hurt just a little bit more.
And that right there is why you always judge process over result. Yeah, if you would have told Bears fans, you'll lose a close one, 27-24, they might have been able to stomach that. But the way that it happened, the process that led to that result, makes that outcome unacceptable. And we want to talk about unacceptable. On yesterday's show, when we previewed that Monday Night Football game, I talked about the big story that came out from Ty Dunn about Caleb Williams' antics behind the scenes and the incompetence of the Chicago Bears organization and all these stories. And whether you believe them or not is up to you. But I just have a hard time not believing it when you see Caleb Williams out there. His stat line looks better than J.J. McCarthy, 21 for 35, 210 passing yards, 1 touchdown. He ran for 58 yards on 6 carries and ran in for a score. Like, you know, you look at that and you'll be like, oh, he outplayed J.J. McCarthy. But late in that game, Caleb Williams could not find anybody. And I go back to a throw where he had DJ Moore wide open to the end zone. And if the Bears score right there, they have a ton of time to stop the Vikings, get the ball back, and have a chance to win the game. But Caleb Williams throws a terrible pass way over DJ Moore's head and out of bounds. Didn't give him a chance whatsoever to make a play on that football and score. And then the Bears have to take more time, have to go all the way down to the goal line. Yeah, they score the points. They find a way to get in, make it 27-24. But again, by the time they do it, there's 2 minutes and 2 seconds left on the clock, and we already talked about what happened after that. So McCarthy deserves his credit, but my real takeaway out of this, boy, Caleb Williams looks awful. He looks just like he looked last year. He does not look any better. So inaccurate, so lost. He just doesn't look like a guy who can lead his teammates. He doesn't look like a guy that his teammates trust, his teammates believe in. When things go bad, you can tell it. He's pouty. It's hard not to read the things that you hear about Caleb Williams and then watch him play on the football field and then have any confidence in him whatsoever to live up to the number 1 draft pick that he was selected with. But with that being said, talking about first-round quarterbacks, it's time for Jaxson Dart to get on the field for the Giants. Do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Supply House. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory, honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. You need parts fast for a project? Supply House has next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer. Join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHNFL5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. Today's episode is also brought to you by Game Time. Look, Game Time is the best place to buy tickets, and the NFL season is back. There's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle between queues, login screens, prices jumping at checkout. It's frustrating. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price that you see is the price that you pay. I love Game Time. I've had NFL tickets, NBA, WNBA, big-time college football. I'm going to a game on Saturday night. MLB. I've done concert and comedy tickets on Game Time. Whatever you need, you can find it. So download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. All right, football fans, let's continue today's edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. Again, a little solo mission for the Madman. We talked about the Monday Night Football matchup. Now I want to get into some quarterback-related issues, I would say. And I have to start with the New York Football Giants. And here's the reality, folks. Watching that game between the Giants and the Commanders, the Giants' offense was pathetic. It was pathetic. Russell Wilson, 17 for 37, 168 yards. That's 4.5 yards per attempt. That's despicable, my friends. Okay? It was a terrible performance. I said it all offseason. Aaron Rodgers is a way better quarterback than Russell Wilson. He's been a better quarterback than Russell Wilson every single year of his existence on this planet. So it is no shock to me that the Steelers' offense immediately looks better with Aaron Rodgers, and the Giants' offense looks stuck in the mud with the Russell Wilson that we saw at the end of the season last year with the Giants. Everyone is frustrated, and that would be one thing. But when you have Jaxson Dart on the bench, who looked incredibly impressive in the preseason, it's going to be hard to keep him off the field. Now, according to Brian Daboll, head coach of the New York Giants, they're not ready to go with the rookie. And I'll throw it to the GOAT, Patricia Traina, from Locked On Giants, to break down the news.
New York Giants head coach Brian Daboll has decided to stick with quarterback Russell Wilson for the team's Week 2 game at Dallas. Daboll, who after the Giants' disappointing 21-6 loss to the Washington Commanders left the door ajar for a possible change, told reporters on Monday that the reason he did so was that he didn't want to make any snap decisions given how emotions were still running high after the game. He also reiterated that the loss, and in particular the sluggish offensive performance, was not all on Wilson, whom he said made good decisions throughout. Daboll also said that the offensive line, which was a major problem in the loss, would not be undergoing any planned changes ahead of the Week 2 game against Dallas.
And if the offensive line isn't going to change, you're not going to be able to have Russell Wilson out there for the entire season. He's just not spry enough, not mobile enough to make that happen. So why not put the rookie out there and give yourself a chance to kind of light something on fire? They're going to be growing pains, but I mean, you just lost 21-6. So, you look like an offense that has a rookie quarterback in. Anyways, now here's what I'll say. I can understand if Brian Daboll doesn't want to pull the trigger too soon, because I think Jaxson Dart is Brian Daboll's get-out-of-jail-free card. If the Giants are not good through the first half of the season, well, then you could just go to Jaxson Dart in the second half of the season, and now you're not going to be having your feet held to the fire for how many wins that you have. It's not about wins once you put in Jaxson Dart. It's about Jaxson Dart. If you put him in too early and it looks bad, well, then you're guaranteed to get fired. But if it looks a little ugly through the first 7 games, 8 games, and you say, all right, the rookie's ready, we'll put the rookie in, then you have a little bit of runway where you can be like, all right, the rookie had some good performances at the end of the year. Let me get another year coaching this football team with the rookie quarterback. You know what I mean? That is a way to keep your job if you're Brian Daboll. So maybe they want to keep their powder dry for right now with Jaxson Dart and keep that get-out-of-jail-free card tucked in their pocket. Maybe that's the philosophy. But if you're trying to actually win games and you're looking to give a spark to your team and give your offense a chance to make something happen, just having the youth, the mobility, the swagger of Jaxson Dart out there, I think the Giants would have a better chance, because this version, I think Jameis Winston is better than this version of Russell Wilson, and I've been saying that all offseason. Again, I liked Aaron Rodgers better than Russell Wilson. I'm not a huge fan of Jaxson Dart coming out of the draft, but at this point, what are we really doing here? What are we doing? So if I'm a Giants fan, I'm having a hard time looking at the team and being like, Brian Daboll is putting his potential, employment above what's best for the New York Giants football team going forward. It seems like at some point that decision is going to be in the crossroads. But speaking of some quarterback concerns, San Francisco 49ers, man, they win a great game against the Seattle Seahawks. It's an ugly one, but they win it. They find a way in a big moment to pull it out. But now, Brock Purdy has a toe injury. He has a shoulder injury. And the 49ers are saying that the toe injury is actually worse than the shoulder injury, and he's uncertain going forward. And then we get the news that George Kittle has a hamstring injury, and he may be out 3 to 5 weeks. Well, you're already without Brandon Ayuk. Trent Williams gave up the most pressures in the NFL this weekend with 10, according to NFL Pro, which I think it's probably a little bit less than that. Their system for judging pressures, in my opinion, is a little wonky. If you just go click pressure and watch all the clips, some of them, in my opinion, are not pressures, not Trent Williams specifically, but just other examples that I've seen. But regardless, I know that San Francisco won. So, you can't go doomsday. But if Brock Purdy's banged up, you don't have Kittle, you don't have Ayuk, Jawan Jennings is, you never know. They go out and get Kendrick Bourne, but the Patriots need wide receiver help desperately, and they didn't want anything to do with him. Christian McCaffrey looked good, but they talked all week about how he was banged up, and then he got 31 touches. Is Christian McCaffrey going to be able to hold up without Kittle, without Ayuk, when you got to run the ball more because Brock Purdy might be compromised? Robert Saleh had that defense balling out, no doubt about it. But I'm just having a hard time believing in the San Francisco 49ers. Something is in the water there. They just need a change, because they just continue to deal with these insane injuries all the time, and just the magic is gone. The magic is entirely gone from the San Francisco 49ers that we saw a couple of years ago go to the Super Bowl. It's just simply not there. But speaking of Super Bowl magic being gone, the Kansas City Chiefs might be trying to get that magic back. with a little reunion with Tyreek Hill. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because whatever bet I want to make, whether it's player props, same-game parlays, even live bets as the action is going on, I can do that on FanDuel. I do my Madman best bets every single week. We went 3-2 this week on FanDuel. Shout out to all of you fine folks who followed the Madman. 3-2. Not great, but a winning week. And we'll take those. But either way, FanDuel is where I'm making all my bets all the time. It's quick, easy, and it's the best way to add a little more energy to my Sundays. So are you ready? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. Once again, that's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. All right, football fans, let's cap off today's edition of Locked On NFL. Again, a little solo mission for the Madman. We talked about the Monday Night Football game. We talked about some quarterback concerns in different ways with the Giants and then the 49ers. But now I want to look at some teams that lost a big divisional game in the opening week and whether they can get things back on track. And I got to tell you, my guy Chris Clark from Locked On Chiefs is worried that the Chiefs' loss on Friday against the Chargers will have long-term ramifications.
And the Kansas City Chiefs drop a heartbreaker in Brazil. They lose 27-21, not able to get a stop at the last minute to try to get the ball back and get it into Patrick Mahomes' hands. Too many mistakes in this game. Injuries cost them as well. Offense was very sporadic the entire first half. This is a game that they will probably regret later in the season just because of the way it went down. Kansas City had the chance to win. They held the Chargers at multiple different times, but their offense is the one that couldn't get it done in the big moments, missed several big shots down the field. This is going to be a game that I am afraid is going to come back to haunt them. I hope I'm wrong, but Kansas City falls to the Chargers in Brazil, and there's going to be much more to come on Locked On Chiefs.
Listen, the biggest concern is the lack of explosive passing. Patrick Mahomes has become old age Peyton Manning. Like, Patrick Mahomes' yards per attempt is at the absolute bottom of the league the last couple of years. Like, it's just insane that a guy with that explosiveness, that kind of arm talent, all those things going for him, it's just insane that they would be entirely unable to generate anything going down the field, anything deep. They're just simply not able to do it. It's hard to believe when you're watching it go down. Completely insane. But how do you fix that? What do you do? Well, now you got Rashee Rice suspended. You got Xavier Worthy with a major shoulder injury. Who knows what the severity of that is? I've heard he might be out all year. I heard he's day-to-day, and he's going to try to wear a shoulder brace and blah, blah, blah. Travis Kelce's still a very good player, but we know that it's not the Travis Kelce from a couple of years ago. We know that. The defense got exposed by the Chargers, and I think the defense will get better. Steve Spagnuolo, excellent defensive coach. The Chiefs are a team that will get better throughout the season, but at some point you need to shake things up. You need to do something drastic. And now we're hearing, according to Mike Florio from Pro Football Talk, a little bit of a rumor that the Chiefs might be interested in bringing Tyreek Hill back to Kansas City. And I got to tell you guys, I think that would be a great idea. And not only would it be a good idea for the Kansas City Chiefs to bring in a guy who's comfortable in their system, who knows what's expected, I think it would reinvigorate Tyreek Hill as well. Listen to this. Tyreek Hill hasn't had a 30-yard reception, a catch that went for 30 yards, one of the most explosive wide receivers that we have ever seen in NFL history. He hasn't had a catch for 30 yards or more since week 1 of last season. Week 1 of last season. So you know who's probably desperately ready to get out of Miami? A complete sinking ship, a dying animal? Probably Tyreek Hill. He's a mercenary at the end of the day. They've already had issues with him in the locker room. He's gotten into nothing but trouble after trouble after trouble after drama down there in Miami. Might be not only better for the Chiefs, not only better for the Dolphins to get draft picks as they kind of need to rebuild this thing, but also good for Tyreek Hill to get out of Miami, one of the most wild cities in America, and maybe go back to the heartland in Kansas City where things are maybe a little bit more boring. That might be better for Tyreek Hill as well. So I have my eye on this one. Also in that report, you're hearing that maybe the Pittsburgh Steelers would be interested. That would be interesting for sure. I understand the philosophy with that, but a reunion with the Kansas City Chiefs just makes so much sense for all parties involved, quite frankly. But also want to mention another team that lost in week 1 in a big divisional matchup, but I think, still has the ability to make a comeback and win their division. And it's the Atlanta Falcons. And I throw it to my guy, Aaron Freeman from Locked On Falcons to break down their loss.
The more things change, the more they stay the same. The Falcons drop a heartbreaker in week 1, 23-20 to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They had a chance for some late game heroics. They got some from Michael Penix Jr., who was able to use his legs rather than his arm to give the Falcons the go-ahead score with 2 minutes left to go, 20-17. But unfortunately, the Falcons defense, which had been solid for most of the day, struggled in the final 2 minutes, giving up a 25-yard touchdown to Emeka Egbuka to give the Bucs a 23-20 lead. Falcons were able to drive down the field, get into field goal range, and had a chance to hit a 44-yard field goal to send the game in overtime. And Younghoe Koo, who's coming off his worst season in 2024, missed it wide right. And so you're back to kind of square one with the Falcons, where you're wondering, okay, how much improvement has this defense made? Is the special teams going to continue to be an issue given Koo's struggles? So those are all questions that the Falcons will have to answer moving forward, but they'll regroup, drop a heartbreaker. Should have won the game. Unfortunately, didn't. But, the Bucs, at least for now, still seem to be the top team in the NFC South, and we'll see if the Falcons can recover next week on Sunday night against the Minnesota Vikings.
The Vikings are going to be a tough test for the Falcons with the pressure they're going to put on Michael Penix. But what I can say is, although the Falcons lost, I was incredibly encouraged by their performance. I thought Michael Penix looked comfortable. Not only did he win from the pocket, which is what you would expect from Michael Penix, considering that that's what he did in college, but he also showed athleticism. And I keep going back to that 4th down where he scrambles out late in the game and is falling forward and reaches out and gets a first down for the Atlanta Falcons. That's a tremendous play. That's a clutch play, and it sets up a touchdown to tie the game. We got to give a lot of credit to Michael Penix. Now, where I really worry about the Falcons is that pass rush, because they spent, first-round pick on Jalen Walker. They spent 2 first-round picks to move up and get James Pierce, and the pass rush still didn't really do much. And especially in the biggest moments, Baker Mayfield had all the time in the world and carved him up and went all the way down to set up the game-winning score. Not only that, but their offensive line is far from the best version. They moved center Graham Barton out to left tackle. They brought up practice squad player Michael Jordan to be at center. They moved up, or at guard. They moved a bunch of stuff around on their offensive line. They don't have Tristan Wirfs. They don't have Chris Godwin. So the Falcons, I am encouraged by them. I think they could be a playoff team this year. I don't think a close loss to the Buccaneers is a damning thing for them. But if the pass rush is still terrible and they spent that much capital on it, it's going to be hard for them to reach their goals. But I still think that they have enough talent on offense that if they can get that defense going, it's week 1, it's 1 loss, it's a big loss, but I don't think the Atlanta Falcons are completely out of it in the South by any stretch of the imagination. I think the Chiefs and the Falcons both have the ability to come back and still win their divisions, even though very, very tough, big-time division losses to start the season. But with that being said, I'm going to land the plane. That's going to do it for this solo mission from the Madman. I am your host, Tyler Rowland, and as I tell you every single episode, thanks for tuning in, and stay safe out there.